Hey everyone, if you're a software developer like me, you know building with AI, especially with large language models, can be a real challenge. But get this, there's this new open source platform, PydanticAI, and it's been making waves in the developer community. It's been generating a ton of buzz, almost like those major announcements you'd hear at AWS reInvented.
Yeah, it's kind of like that. And it makes sense, because Pydantic, the team behind it, they're already known for their rock-solid Python data validation library. Now they're bringing that same reliability to AI, and the initial feedback has been super positive.
For sure, and what's got everyone so pumped is that PydanticAI is all about simplifying the development of production-ready AI apps, especially those using large language models, LLMs as they're called. And here's the kicker. It's open source, MIT license, no vendor lock-in, free to use commercially, the whole 9 yards. Before we get too far ahead of ourselves, let's break this down. What exactly is Pydantic AI?
So, at its heart, Pydantic AI is an agent framework. Now, I know agent framework might sound a little intimidating at first, but think of it this way. Imagine you have these specialized containers, these agents, and each agent, it's responsible for managing how your application talks to the LLM.
Gotcha. So the agents are like the middlemen, making sure everything runs smoothly.
Exactly. They handle things like, okay, how do we craft the right prompts for the LLM? What tools do we need to use? And most importantly, how do we make sure the output we get back from the LLM is structured and predictable?
Okay, I'm starting to see how this agent-based approach could really simplify things. But can you give us a real-world example? How would this actually play out in an application?
Sure. Let's say you're building a customer support chatbot for a bank, something a lot of developers might encounter. With Pydantic AI, you could have an agent specifically dedicated to handling customer interactions. This agent, it would know how to query the LLM to get the right information, how to securely access customer data, and even how to provide personalized advice based on that customer's history.
Wow, that sounds pretty powerful.
And all of this, it's done in a really structured and predictable way, thanks to that agent framework.
So basically, instead of writing a ton of custom code to manage that back and forth with the LLM, we could just hand it off to these Pydantic AI agents. That sounds like a massive time saver.
Yeah, exactly. It streamlines the whole process. And what's even better is that you're not learning a whole new language to build these agents. It's all done in plain Python, meaning you can use your existing skills, keep everything consistent with your current development workflow.
That's huge for developers. Familiarity and ease of use. I've actually been seeing a lot of buzz online about Pydantic AI. People are already comparing it to tools like LangChain, which is another framework for building LLM-powered applications.
Yeah, those comparisons are interesting. There are definitely some overlaps with LangChain. But Pydantic AI, it sets itself apart with that agent-based architecture and a strong focus on something we'll dive into a bit later, type safety. Some folks have even compared it to a hybrid of, let's see, JXNLCo's instructor concept and OpenAI's Swarm. What's really cool is how Pydantic AI brings these ideas together into this cohesive, developer-friendly package.
Okay, developer-friendly, that's the key here.
Yeah.
So let's get into the nitty-gritty. What makes Pydantic AI so appealing for us coders? One thing that really stood out to me was its model-agnostic nature.
Oh, that's a big one. Model agnostic, meaning you're not locked into using a specific LM provider.
Right, so we have options.
Exactly. You can switch between OpenAI, Google's Gemini, Grok. There's even planned support for Anthropic. This flexibility is super important. I mean, the LLM landscape, it's constantly changing, right? You don't want to get stuck with a platform that limits your choices down the line.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a good point. Future-proofing our projects. So model agnosticism, definitely a plus. Now, there's another feature I keep hearing about. Dynamic system prompts. What's the deal with those?
Okay, so picture this. You're building an app. And depending on what the user does, you need to tweak the instructions you're sending to the LLM just slightly. With Pydantic AI, you're not stuck with those fixed prompts. You can create these dynamic prompts that change on the fly. They adapt to the context of your application.
Interesting. So it's like giving our agents a little extra intelligence, letting them tailor their communication with the LLMs in real time.
Exactly. And you'd think this would get complicated quickly, right?
Yeah, it sounds like it could get pretty complex.
But actually, Pydantic AI makes it really intuitive. You use plain Python to define the logic for how those prompts change, and the framework handles all the heavy lifting behind the scenes.
Awesome. So it's powerful, but still approachable. Now, we can't talk about Pydantic without talking about their core strength, data validation. How does that play into Pydantic AI?
Okay. This is where Pydantic AI really shines when it comes to reliability. LLMs are amazing, don't get me wrong, but their responses can be a little unpredictable sometimes.
Yeah, I've definitely run into that. Like, you expect a number, but the LLM decides to give you a bunch of text instead,
Yeah.
and then boom, your application crashes.
Exactly. It can totally throw a wrench in your workflow. But here's the beauty of PydanticAI. It uses that core data validation strength to ensure the LLM's outputs are structured and type safe.
Okay, so it's like a safety net preventing those unexpected data type mismatches.
Exactly. It's like you're saying, hey, LLM, I need this specific type of data and I need it in this format.
Hmm.
And PydanticAI enforces those rules so you don't get those nasty surprises that can break your application.
That's a huge relief, especially when you're building something that needs to be rock solid in production.
Right. And it's not just about preventing errors, it's also about making your code more readable and easier to maintain. With those clear type annotations and data structures, it's way easier for anyone to understand what's going on in your code, even months or years down the line.
That makes a lot of sense. It's like future-proofing your code as well. Okay, so we've talked about data validation, but earlier you mentioned these tools that agents can use. Can you expand on that? What role do tools play in this whole agent framework?
Tools, they're a fantastic way to extend what your agents can do beyond just chatting with the LLM. Let's say your agent needs to access some external data. Maybe it needs to pull a customer's transaction history from a database. In PydanticAI, you can define those actions as tools that your agent can use during its workflow.
So it's like giving our agent a set of specialized skills or actions it can perform.
Exactly. It's like equipping your agent with the right tools for the job.
Does that mean we can integrate Pydantic AI with all sorts of external services and APIs?
Absolutely. And what makes this integration so smooth is PydanticAI's dependency injection system.
Dependency injection.
Uh-huh.
That sounds a little complex.
It might sound intimidating, but it's actually quite elegant. Let's say your agent needs to fetch data from a specific API, and that API requires an API key for authentication. With PydanticAI's dependency injection, you can easily provide that API key to your agent without having to hard-code it or pass it around manually.
So it's like the framework is taking care of all the plumbing so we can focus on the core logic of our application.
Exactly. It's all about making things easier for developers. And it's not just about convenience. It promotes good coding practices like modularity and reusability.
Right, so we can build more organized and maintainable code.
Precisely.
I also noticed that Pydantic AI supports streamed responses, even with all that validation going on. This seems perfect for real-time applications like chatbots where you want that constant back and forth.
You got it. That's a really cool feature. It shows that the PydanticAI team really gets the nuances of building LLM-powered applications. They're thinking about the features developers actually need.
Okay, I'm starting to see the bigger picture here. But to really grasp how powerful this is, can we dive into some practical examples? What kind of concrete things can we actually build with Pydantic AI?
For sure. Let's revisit that customer support agent example we talked about earlier. With PydanticAI, that agent could do so much more than just answer basic questions. It could dynamically access customer data, offer personalized financial advice based on their spending habits. It could even assess risk levels for security purposes.
Wow, that's really stepping things up.
And all while ensuring that the data being handled is accurate and secure thanks to that data validation we talked about.
So it's like giving that customer support agent a brain and a set of tools to actually make informed decisions. What other cool applications could we build?
Let's get creative. Imagine interactive games where the gameplay itself is driven by an LLM. You could have a dynamic quiz where the questions and answers are generated on the fly, or a dice game where the outcomes are determined by a mix of user input and predefined logic, all managed through PydanticAI agents.
That sounds awesome. I love the idea of AI-powered games. I can even imagine using Pydantic AI to automate complex workflows. You could have a system of multiple agents, each with its own specialized task, all working together to achieve a larger goal.
You got it. That's the beauty of this framework. It scales from simple single-agent systems to those intricate multi-agent scenarios. The possibilities are really vast, which is what makes PydanticAI so exciting.
Okay, this all sounds fantastic, but we should acknowledge the elephant in the room. Pydantic AI is still in beta. What does that mean for developers who are eager to jump in and start building?
Good point. It's definitely important to remember that PydanticAI is still under active development. The API might change, new features are being added all the time, but the core concepts are solid. And the good news is that the Pydantic team is super open to feedback. They're actively working with the developer community to make sure PydanticAI evolves in a way that meets real-world needs.
That's reassuring to hear. It sounds like they're really committed to building this platform with developers in mind.
Absolutely. And that's one of the most exciting things about it. PydanticAI, it's not just another flashy AI tool. It's a well thought out platform designed to make building with LLMs a more enjoyable and productive experience for developers.
I love that, making our lives as developers a bit easier. Well, we've covered a lot of ground in this first part of our deep dive into Pydantic AI.
Hmm.
We've talked about what it is, how it works, and why it's causing such a stir in the dev community. But we've only scratched the surface.
All right, so let's dive into some of those key features that make PydanticAI really stand out, especially for you developers who are all about writing clean, efficient, and reliable code.
Yeah, let's get into the nuts and bolts. One thing that impressed me was how Pydantic AI uses plain Python for defining workflows. It's a breath of fresh air compared to some frameworks that make you learn a whole new way of doing things.
Yeah, I totally agree. Not having to learn a new language is a huge plus. PydanticAI doesn't introduce any new abstractions or DSLs. It's just plain Python. So you're in control, using the syntax and best practices you're already familiar with.
It's like they get us. They understand what developers want.
Exactly. It makes the learning curve so much smoother. Plus, you can seamlessly integrate PydanticAI into your existing code base.
Right, no need to reinvent the wheel.
Yeah.
But I'm also curious about how Pydantic AI handles type safety, especially when we're dealing with LLMs, which can sometimes give us unpredictable outputs.
That's where Pydantic's background really comes into play. They're known for their robust data validation, and they've brought that same rigor to PydanticAI.
Okay, so it's like having a built-in safety net to catch those data type mismatches.
Exactly. You use Pydantic models to define the exact structure and types of data you expect from the LLM. It's like saying, hey, LLM, I need this data to be a number, not a string.
So if the LLM tries to give us something unexpected, Pydantic AI will flag it.
You got it. It'll throw a clear error message so you can catch and fix the issue early on.
That's huge for preventing runtime errors and building reliable applications.
Absolutely. It's about being proactive, not reactive.
And it's not just simple type checking, right?
Nope. You can go much deeper. You can define complex data structures like nested lists and dictionaries, even custom validation logic.
So we have a lot of control over how the data is structured and validated.
Tons of control. And that level of control is essential for building robust applications.
Thinking back to that bank support agent example, we could use Pydantic models to make sure sensitive data like account numbers or transaction amounts are always formatted correctly.
Exactly. It's all about ensuring data integrity.
And not just preventing errors, but also making the code more readable and maintainable.
Oh, yeah, for sure. With those clear type annotations and data structures, it's so much easier to understand what the code is doing.
It's like a self-documenting code.
Kinda. It makes collaboration and long-term maintenance a breeze.
Okay, so we've got the type safety covered. Now let's talk more about those tools we mentioned earlier. How does Pydantic AI make integrating with external services and APIs so easy?
Remember those special functions we talked about, the ones
Yeah.
that give agents extra abilities? Well, defining those tools in PydanticAI is super straightforward.
Okay, walk me through it.
You literally just use the @tool decorator above a regular Python function, and that's it. It becomes a tool that your agent can call.
And because it's just a function, we can use all the familiar Python stuff, like arguments and return values.
Exactly. And even asynchronous operations if you need them.
So if I needed my agent to, say, grab real-time stock prices from an API, I could write a tool function for that.
Exactly. And that's where dependency injection comes in.
Right, we talked about that earlier.
So let's say that stock price API needs an API key. With PydanticAI, you can provide that API key to your tool function without any hassle.
No more hard-coding sensitive information or passing it around manually.
Exactly. The framework takes care of it.
So it's like the framework is our personal assistant, handing us the things we need when we need them.
I like that analogy. And what's really neat is that PydanticAI's dependency injection is type safe.
So if we mess up the configuration, the framework will let us know.
It'll catch those errors during development, saving you from headaches later on.
That's a huge relief. It's like having a safety net for our dependencies. Speaking of safety nets, we can't forget about testing and debugging. How does Pydantic AI support those essential parts of the development process?
Well, because PydanticAI embraces plain Python, testing your agents and tools is super easy. You can write unit tests, integration tests, whatever you need.
So it fits right into our existing testing workflows.
Precisely. And the type-safe dependency injection makes it a breeze to mock external dependencies during testing.
So we can isolate and test different parts of our application without any complex setups.
Exactly. It's all about making testing as painless as possible.
And what about debugging?
For debugging, PydanticAI has this really cool integration with Logfire.
Oh yeah, Logfire, I've heard good things about it.
It's a fantastic observability platform, and with PydanticAI, you get all the benefits of Logfire without any extra work.
Okay, so what can we actually do with Logfire?
You can trace how data flows through your agents, see which tools are being called, identify bottlenecks or errors. It's all there in a user-friendly interface.
Wow, that's powerful. It's like having X-ray vision into our application.
Exactly. It takes the guesswork out of debugging.
It sounds like PydanticAI has really thought through the entire development lifecycle.
They have, from writing the code to testing and debugging it, and they've done it while keeping the developer experience front and center.
It's clear they want developers to actually enjoy using PydanticAI.
Absolutely. They've prioritized making it a tool that's both powerful and a pleasure to use.
Okay, we've covered a ton of technical details in this section. We've talked about the Python-centric approach, type safety, tools, dependency injection, and even debugging with Logfire. But I think it's time to zoom out a bit. Where does PydanticAI fit into the bigger picture of AI development? So we've spent a lot of time talking about the nuts and bolts of PydanticAI, but I'm curious about your take on its broader impact. Where do you see it fitting into the overall landscape of AI development? Especially now with so many new tools and platforms popping up left and right.
Yeah, that's a great question. I think it's important to understand the context here. We're kind of at this point where the initial hype around LLMs is settling down a bit, and developers are realizing, building reliable, scalable AI applications, it takes more than just having a powerful language model.
So it's not enough to just throw an LLM at a problem and hope for the best.
Exactly. It's not magic. What we're seeing now is a shift towards a more structured approach to AI development, more engineering focused.
Right.
And I think PydanticAI is right at the forefront of this movement.
Interesting. So how is PydanticAI leading the way? What sets it apart from other AI development tools?
Well, one of the things that excites me most about PydanticAI is how it strikes this balance, between embracing the power of LLMs and still sticking to those core principles of good software engineering.
Right. So it's not just about quick hacks and prototypes.
Exactly. It's about building systems that are robust, maintainable, systems that can handle the complexities of real-world applications.
So it's like bringing the best practices from traditional software development into the world of AI.
That's a great way to put it. And I think that's crucial for making AI more accessible and impactful.
I can see that.
By giving developers familiar tools and workflows, PydanticAI lowers the barrier to entry for those who are new to AI, while also giving experienced engineers the confidence to build really sophisticated systems.
It's like creating a common language for developers from different backgrounds. So, thinking even bigger picture, what do you see as the long-term potential of PydanticAI, maybe even agent frameworks in general?
Honestly, I think the potential is huge. As LLMs continue to evolve and become even more powerful, we're going to need robust frameworks like PydanticAI to manage that complexity, to make sure we can actually build reliable and impactful applications. And agent-based architectures with their modularity and flexibility, they're well-suited to tackle the challenges of building those increasingly sophisticated AI systems.
It's pretty exciting to imagine what kind of applications we'll be able to build in the future.
Absolutely.
And with platforms like PydanticAI paving the way, it feels like we're on the verge of a new era in software development.
I couldn't agree more. It's an amazing time to be working in this space.
So as we wrap up this deep dive into PydanticAI, what's the one key takeaway you hope our listeners, especially those developers out there, will walk away with?
I'd say this. PydanticAI gives you the power to build AI-powered applications. With the same level of confidence and rigor you bring to any other software project, it's about harnessing the power of LLMs, but without sacrificing those core principles of good engineering, type safety, modularity, testability, maintainability.
It's about building for the future, not just for the hype cycle.
Exactly.
Well, I think that's a fantastic point to end on. For our listeners out there, if you're intrigued by the potential of LLMs, but maybe a little intimidated by the complexities, definitely check out PydanticAI. It might just be the tool you need to bring your next big idea to life.
And don't forget, it's open source. So dive in, explore the code, join the community. Let's build the future of AI together.
There's a great call to action. A huge thank you for joining us on this deep dive into PydanticAI. Until next time, happy coding, everyone.